Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Marketing Mondays. This is actually episode 78. I just found out today. I hadn't been really keeping track of how many episodes we've been doing, but this is actually episode 78. Just got back from an industry conference this last week, did a presentation there, got a lot of great questions queued up for this session of Marketing Mondays. So with that, I want to welcome in my co-host, Ronnie West. Good to see you, Ronnie.
Yeah, good to see you. Finally, like you said beforehand, it's kind of playing catch up, but it was a good, busy, fun week, and but glad to be back home, obviously. But it was nice meeting a bunch of people that are in the industry, that putting a face to a name, and that's always a good thing.
I think I always say to people, these industry get-togethers are more about the time you spend with other people than anything that's presented from the stage. Even though I presented from the stage, I tell people all the time, you learn more from each other over dinner, over drinks, whatever the case may be, over coffee in the morning, than you're ever going to learn from anybody that's talking from the stage. So it's just great to get together with everybody, see everybody again. Obviously, you probably had a little bit of a rough flight getting out of there with the weather, but I was driving out of there, but at least you got out.
Yeah, no, it was funny. The flight actually went right towards the storm and then turned away. But everything was on time. Everything was smooth. There wasn't much turbulence, so it was the perfect timing just to get out right before that storm hit.
Nice. Well, I know we've got a lot of questions that were queued up this week, so why don't we just go ahead and jump in, and we'll get to as many of them as we possibly can.
Yeah, for sure. So the first one is based off of essentially social media ads. How do I do ads on Facebook and Instagram to show up on other people's feeds after they search for a related product or service that I offer? So one guy that mentioned that he had typed in the search for watches, and all of a sudden on his feed, he kept getting shown different kinds of watches. So how do you end up putting your business in somebody's eye on the social media?
Well, there's two ways I'll touch on there. One, if they've looked at your ad or content that you've created, there's a way that you can be a remarketing by building a Facebook or a Meta audience to reach people that have already interacted with your ads. That's one way that you could reach people that have already interacted with you. So if they've searched for a product or services, looked at your product or service, you can continue to keep it in front of them. That's one way that you could do it. The other way, which I think they're trying to get at with this question, is just that you looked at a specific watch ad or a watch post, and now you're seeing watch posts from a lot of different people. And I think anybody that's active at all on social media can empathize with that. I think we've all seen that. We've all experienced it. That comes from somebody building an audience on the back end of Facebook about people that are interested in watches. And the minute you click on a piece of content related to watches, Meta then registers you as somebody that's interested in watches. So now everybody that's using a watch or watches as part of their interest graph in their audience, their posts are going to start showing up in your feed because they're paying to reach people that are interested in watches. So those are the two different ways that you could typically show up. Is one, if they've interacted with your content, you can remarket to them. And then secondly, somebody can target you based on different posts you've looked at, because it will register with Meta that you're interested in a particular topic, whether it's boots, purses, watches, whatever the case may be. They can target that interest graph, and anybody that's marketing to that interest graph, you're going to start seeing. So those are the two different ways.
And we've talked about this a bunch, and it's one of those things I know we'll hammer home. That's why don't just use the boost button to just throw money at something. Make sure that you have one of these audiences created. Otherwise, say you're throwing that out and you're hitting people that aren't in the market for a watch. And it's like you're just wasting your money by putting that content in front of them when you should be trying to market to, like you said, that specific interest group or people that are in the market for it. And just make sure that you create an audience or create some sort of subset group that you're targeting versus just saying, I'm putting $300 down and I'm just going to market this out. When, you might get one or two results back, but you could have done that for $50 and it's not worth that value. So make sure whether you reach out to one of us and ask, like, how do you do that? or kind of research it yourself and kind of figure out how does this whole thing work. So, but that's, and I'm sure we'll say it again in another episode. I'm sure we've said it in the last few, but don't just boost the button, or don't just boost without actually creating some sort of audience.
Absolutely. I mean, we could do an entire Marketing Mondays on just building audiences. And because I think that so many people miss basics with regard to that. A good example is I consistently in my feed on Instagram and on Facebook get posts from people that are not even in my geographic area, like people like automotive repair garages and things like that are in Maryland. They're not even in my geographic area. They're like states away. So clearly I'm not going to take my car to get it repaired there. So they must be targeting something like automotive interests or something like that. Cause I am interested in automotive stuff, but they're not narrowing it geographically, or they don't have something set up right, because I should never be seeing their ad. And I see that happen consistently. I saw it happening with one automotive garage in Maryland so consistently on my feed that I literally called them up and said, hey, I don't know who's doing your marketing, but just so that you know, I'm seeing your ads on a regular basis and I'm in Ohio. Like, I felt the need to actually reach out to them and say, something's not set up right, because I'm seeing your ads on a regular basis in Ohio, and I should not be. So setting up an audience properly is going to make sure that you're getting every possible return on the money that you're spending. You're not wasting any of it, putting it in front of people that aren't interested.
Yeah, I was just going to mention too, I usually wait to the end, but you have created a few videos that we've put on Facebook of you kind of going through and describing the different ways for different markets and how to create those audiences. Yep. So after you watch this, go check out the YouTube page and find that stuff out. If it's something that you're trying to figure out or trying to understand, Patric gives a great walkthrough of how to do that kind of step by step. So make sure you check that out.
It's critical. I mean, if you were going to do social media marketing, it is critical that you set your audiences up properly, or you're just setting yourself up to spend a lot of money, a lot more than you need to get the results.
Yeah. So our next question is, are there changes I should make when using Chat GPT when it comes to creating website or SEO content? So I think this was kind of in reference to, is there things that they should look out for, pitfalls or stuff? I know you had mentioned like the AI hallucinations and different things like that. What are some things to think about when utilizing Chat GPT when you're putting that stuff into your website or SEO content?
First, I want to say, if you're going to use a Chat GPT type of platform, I would use BARD, which is Google's version of Chat GPT, BARD. We could probably even link it up in the comments. BARD is very similar to Chat GPT, that you could ask it questions and it will actually generate answers, generate content the same way Chat GPT is. The first thing I'm going to say is you should not be using any of these platforms to just copy and paste content. Use them as a way to inspire you for different contents. Ask it to write a great headline for a post or for something that's on your website, but do not look at like just saying, okay, write an article about X and then just copying and pasting that entire thing. Couple reasons for that. One, artificial intelligence isn't completely accurate. It's not always perfect. So sometimes the information contained there, and I actually showed in my presentation how the information could be mostly accurate, but there could be some inaccuracies in it. So if you don't proofread it, you don't make sure it's all accurate, that could come up. Secondly, you will not get the SEO benefit from a completely copy and pasted piece of content than you might for an original piece of content. So what I like to say to people to do, if they have a question about how to write an article about something, whatever, put it into BARD and let it spit out some content. Then take that as a framework or inspiration to create a piece of content around that, but not copy and pasted, but use it for some good content. Use that on your website, and that's going to be considered an original piece of content. The other thing that we've noticed by playing around with these Chat GPT and BARD platforms is if you do copy and paste and drop it into a website and you actually look at the coding, there are actual markers on the back of the coding to show that it is generated from an AI platform. So Google does know that this content came from an AI platform and isn't original content. So unless you're going into the HTML and you're removing those markers, it's very easy for a search engine to know that this is not original content and it's created by AI. So I think these are great tools. I think they're going to continue to get better, and they're something everybody should be using and figuring out how to integrate into their business. I do not think there's something that you should be using as a way to just shortcut the process and copy and paste. I think that you're going to be potentially having some things that are inaccurate, and secondly, you potentially aren't going to get the SEO benefit you're really doing the work to get in the first place.
Yeah, I just loaded in both the BARD and Chat GPT links. So if anybody has heard about this but hasn't gone and played around with it, the links are there in our comments. If you're watching this after the fact, go to the iMagnet page and you can see them there.
I would encourage you, if you are not familiar with AI or not familiar specifically with BARD and or Chat GPT, to go in there and just play around a little bit. At the very minimum, familiarize yourself with what this tool does and try to think about ways that you could potentially utilize it for your business. AI is not going anywhere. We may want to not adapt it, but the reality is, the sooner you start to understand how these platforms work, how AI works, begin to utilize tools that can help you through your day-to-day business, the better off you're going to be, because it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, I agree. I use it quite a bit, probably on a daily basis, but it's one of those things, just like everything you said, you have to proofread everything. Even if you're doing a small few sentences versus a full article, obviously you should be going through and checking that. But even if you do a sentence or two, just read it so that it makes that, and read it to yourself and make sure that it sounds correct and it's fulfilling everything that you're wanting it to say versus just click and paste. Because like you said, it's one of those things that's where laziness will lead to mistakes, and just making sure that you're following up on every little one, even if it is a few sentences or not.
And you mentioned real quickly at the beginning of that question, AI hallucinations. If you're not familiar with what that term is, sometimes AI, in compiling all the information to answer questions, has what they call hallucination, and it will literally just create content that is out of context and it doesn't make any sense sometimes. So if you're not proofreading and looking at it, there's a chance that the content could have an AI hallucination, and really there'd be a paragraph, a sentence, something in your content that would not make any sense because it's one of these hallucinations, and it's part of AI getting smarter and smarter. But right now that's happening. If you ever want to just Google AI hallucinations, it'll give you probably more information than you actually want to know. But just be aware that these platforms are not perfect. So anyway, but they are very useful, but they are not perfect.
Exactly. Our next one, and it's a pretty simple one, but it probably has a lot of things you could say around it. Are hashtags still relevant, whether you're using them on Facebook? One of the things that I think you mentioned in your presentation was, depending on the site or the platform that you're using, sometimes they are useful, sometimes they're not. But are they still relevant in general?
I think that they are still relevant on certain platforms. They've always been relevant on very particular platforms. Obviously, Instagram is really where that people started to really spend a lot of time doing hashtags. So it's still relevant there. Twitter and LinkedIn would be the three areas where I would say hashtags are relevant. Facebook, really, it's not a big thing on Facebook. Some people use hashtags to get, as part of their copy, but in general, you're not going to get a lot of bang for your buck with hashtags on Facebook. What I would say is to use maybe fewer hashtags than you used to. Use ones that are more relevant, specific to that post. Don't use the same ones over and over again. Like a lot of people fall into a trap where they've created a document and they copied and pasted 28 hashtags, and every post they use the same hashtags. They actually will get less and less. I don't know how to exactly say this. It seems like when you do that, they get less and less beneficial every time you use. It's almost like the platform knows that you're copying and pasting a list of hashtags, that it gets less and less beneficial. So try to mix it up a little bit and don't use the same hashtags for every post. I would say the most beneficial would be, Instagram, I guess Twitter, or X, I guess we should refer to it now as. instead of Twitter. And LinkedIn hashtags are still relevant. And again, I think I wouldn't say you don't need to use them. They don't have as much juice as they used to a couple years ago, but that doesn't mean I would just abandon them completely. Just be conscious of how you use them. Don't use the same ones every single time. It looks like you're not spending time to actually put relevant hashtags and you're just pasting them into your every post you post.
Yeah, I am probably still guilty of that, especially I run a whole bunch of different Instagram pages. I know I think you used to be able to, or you still can do like up to 29 or 30 hashtags on Instagram. And I was doing that for my dog and my cat page. And for those ones, it's probably not that important. But if you're doing a business page or if you're trying to build your personal brand, it's probably smart to shrink that down to 5. And like you said, mix them up and not do any more than 5. I think the last round of influencers that got feedback from the platforms, it was like 3 to 5 is ideal, and try to keep it to the lower end of that. So just make sure you're not overusing it or overkilling, I think is what you were kind of pointing at, that if you're using those same ones over and over and over again, the algorithm is going to pick up that you're kind of trying to game the system with all of these. And so it's going to probably put your post out to less and less people. And that's essentially what you don't want to happen.
And the other thing a lot of people are doing now, which is something to pay attention to, is if you don't want your post to be cluttered up with a bunch of hashtags or whatever, a lot of people are using the first comment to post hashtags, and that's also something that you could do. You're still going to get whatever juice there is there to have. You can still get by putting it in the first comment, and it doesn't make your post look as cluttered. So if you are using a string of hashtags, maybe consider putting it in the first comment.
Yeah, Tim just mentions he was thinking he was overusing them. And that's one thing too, just like what you said with putting it in the comment, it's one of those things where if you're posting something, you want to get those extra comments and engagement. And that essentially is creating your initial engagement. So one, right off the bat, you have a comment. So it actually helps kind of sustain it, even though it is from your account. But the algorithm is still going to notice, oh, there's a comment that was posted with this. So that's better than no comment. And like you said, aesthetically, it looks probably a lot better to have it down in the comments versus in with your regular post. So just something to think.
Speaking of that too, with comments, if you really want to get more and more reach on your posts, I see this a lot with people that post stuff and then they never comment. Like if somebody puts comments in, they never respond to the comments. If you're going to post something on your business page and people comment, even if they say great post, whatever the case may be, jump in there and reply and say, thanks, glad you liked it, whatever. Interact with the post. If somebody posts and you get 15 comments and you haven't liked, responded, replied to any of them, it's not a great look, and it probably negatively impacts how many people are going to get to see your post or get how much organic reach it's going to get. So my recommendation is if people are commenting, take the time to go in there and reply. Bare minimum, like the comment, appropriate thing, but don't just leave a string of comments unanswered. At least it's kind of just a common courtesy. If somebody's going to take the time to leave you a comment, respond. I mean, same thing with reviews we've talked about. If somebody leaves you a good review, go in there and reply and thank them for the review in Google. I'm talking about.
Yeah, I was gonna say, even if you use an emoji, like that's some sort of reply. Tim mentions, do you think hashtagging the words within the paragraph is a better way? And I think sometimes it is, as long as it's not over cluttered. Like you don't want to be hashtagging like 7 or 8 different words just because you feel they're focused keywords that you want to kind of hit. If you have 1 or 2, that's great. And you can still do like the hashtags in the comment as well, if that's something you want to do. But I wouldn't go just the same as we've been saying. Don't overkill it with too many hashtags. Just try to fill up and try to beat the algorithm.
Well, the other thing is 2 different things there. My rule of thumb is you can hashtag in the text if it's 1 word. Sometimes hashtags are multiple words sandwiched together. I'm not a big fan of that because it can make it a little bit weird to read. So if you're using hashtags in the paragraphs, try to limit it to ones that are 1 word, like, hashtag tagging is fine, but hashtag tagging posts, then looks weird because you've sandwiched two words together. So if you're going to hashtag in the paragraph, limit it to hashtags that are one word. And the other thing to do is if somebody has a Facebook page and you're talking about them, a brand or anything like that, go ahead and use the @ symbol and tag them in the post. That could help you get a little bit more organic reach for your comment too, and maybe even get a response from the actual company that you're tagging in your post as well.
You can also tag it within Instagram. You can also tag them through the picture as well versus just doing it in the text. So that might be something too. If you wanted to keep the text clean and you can go in and actually tag them, it'll say like tag people, and then you can click on the actual photo. If you have multiple distributors or whatever it might be, and you don't want to have each one of them listed, you can just go in and tag them, and it'll show up on their feed on the far right on their profile, so that it's, as long as they approve it. So then it'll show up and your post will be essentially on their page. So that might be something to consider as well.
Yep, exactly.
Our next question is there an AI that can is there an AI that can auto reply to emails, whether it's like a chat bot or something? And is that something that should be utilized if possible?
There are platforms out there that can auto reply as a chatbot or even in the emails. My concern about those platforms is exactly what I talked about earlier. I think it makes sense that somebody might want to have a chatbot automatically interact with somebody. However, because of the propensity for there to possibly be an error, that would be a concern to me. Plus, I think that the only time I would potentially use one of these is if you just wanted to generate like a initial response. It's not right now. I don't think the technology is such that you can basically put it on cruise control and expect that this bot is going to basically interact on your behalf for everything. I think, if you want to utilize it to answer some basic questions and just get people a couple more steps down the road and then refer them to you reaching out to them or something like that, I think it could work. My concern is these things just right now with the hallucinations and some of the errors that they create, that I get the reason people would want to do it. And I do think we're coming to a day where chatbots and things like that on websites are going to predominantly be AI driven and you're going to be able to have a conversation with a chatbot that's going to be 99.9% accurate without it being a human being. But right now, I don't think we're there. So I would advise against these right now. But again, if you want to come up with a really good, response to a question you routinely get on email or something like that, you could certainly use a chat bot. You could certainly use BARD or Chat GPT to come up with a really great response that you can use for a lot of emails. And that would be something like an initial response back. So you can use the tools to help you craft a really great response back, but I wouldn't put it on auto.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we had mentioned this in the past before, whether it's you use the AI or chatbot within your website to kind of start the initial process, but it shouldn't be a part of your sales process yet. I think, like we said, it's probably a few years away. But essentially, if it's like an admin or like a receptionist where that's taking in notes or that's getting your contact information that you kind of have set up in an auto reply, I think that's a good use of it. But as far as trying to reply back on an email or trying to do specifics, I think we're still a ways away. Even if there is something that people are saying is available now, I don't think it's going to be so specific and niche down to whatever you're catering to that's going to actually provide that value that I think they may be saying, at least for a few years.
It'll get there. Yeah, it'll get there. I firmly believe that. It's just not there yet.
Agreed. The next one that came in is, are Google ads still important? Whether it's of all the things that can kind of be done, can you still or should be utilizing Google ads if you're not?
The answer to that is yes, but I want to clarify that with a couple different things. Google ads in and of themselves should be used in combination with another strategy to get your foundation in place. By foundation, I mean, a website that has solid SEO that's been submitted to the search engines, that you have different on-site and off-site SEO things happening so that your website begins to populate for search results organically or for free. Your Google business page should also be fully optimized and be updated regularly so that you're coming up in the map pack organically or for free for relevant search engine searches for key phrases, keywords. Now, once you have that foundation in place, I think you can use Google AdWords to fill in the gaps. Like if you're not coming up as high as you would like to, you could use AdWords to get you to the top of that list while your organic results are filtering and hopefully going up. You can also use it for, keywords where maybe somebody's been in business a lot longer than you, and it's very difficult to organically get to the top of that list. Might be a place where you might want to use some Google AdWords to get yourself to the top of the list. There's a way you can set up AdWords to where it can be smart and begin to put your ads in front of people that are searching for relevant things that aren't necessarily something you thought about making a keyword for. So the answer to that is yes. I think Google AdWords are still very relevant and can get you to the top of search engine results, which those are very, when somebody's searching on Google or any other search engine for a particular keyword or key phrase, that's a very intentional search, which means they're a couple steps further down the sales path than somebody that's maybe on social media that's just seeing your content. So absolutely, when somebody actually searches for a keyword that's relevant to your business, you want to come up high in those results. And if you have to use Google pay-per-click to do that, I think it's very relevant to do that. We still run a lot of Google AdWords for clients on a monthly basis and manage that for them. So I do think it still is relevant. I think that, again, but not what I would say is don't get caught in the trap of, not paying attention to your website or your Google business page and getting results from Google AdWords. Because here's the thing, the minute you turn those AdWords off, there's no legacy benefit of those Google AdWords. The minute you stop the spending, the results will stop as well. So if you haven't built a foundation that's going to give you organic results, the minute you stop spending money on Google, your results will stop as well. So ideally use it in tandem with organic strategy so that you're not only getting the results from the AdWords, you're beginning to get better and better results from organic.
Yeah, I'd say that was probably one of the most popular comments or questions that we got while at the show last week was me asking if they're utilizing their Google business page, and a lot of people aren't. And I think just like Tim had just asked, he was trying to post a video to his Google page and it had been having some issues. One of the things that I've noticed working with a few people is that Google has been limiting the time length that you can put on there. So you're not going to be able to put like a 3-minute long Instagram or Facebook video onto your Google. And essentially, I think you've mentioned this before and I mistakenly was like, just use the Google as almost another social media place, but you're going to want to use like fully optimized SEO, like tidbits into your Google posts. And sometimes a video can do that, but it's essentially like an image and then a highly fully optimized text can go with it. Is probably going to benefit you more than trying to just put a full video in because one, it's going to come up on the search. If you're trying to use that video, I would suggest putting it on YouTube and do a YouTube short. And then that way you're still getting that Google connection because they're owned by the same company, but hammer in on those images and really good text in those Google posts.
The other thing you could do as well is if you have a video you want to share of a project, maybe take a still of the project, fully optimize that image, put that image in, and then also, because you could put multiple things in a post, put the image in, so you got a fully optimized image, and then also put the video in so somebody can see both of them. That's going to probably help you get a little bit more benefit than just putting in the video by itself, because it's not as easy to potentially optimize a video as it is to optimize an image. But if somebody's still in September, the end of September 2023, sleeping on Google Business, you're making a huge mistake. It's, I would say, as important right now as your website. And I used to say almost as important as your website. Right now, I would say it's as important as your website. And I urge you to not be sleeping on your Google Business page. I think that having the page fully filled out and optimized and adding to it on a regular basis is probably one of the best things you can be doing for your local business right now.
Yeah, I would say to go along with that, and if you don't have a website, you should be making sure that that Google business page is to the max. Like, do as much as you can to that, because I understand if you don't have the budget for a website, if you're just starting out small, make sure that you're utilizing that Google business page, because one, it's free, and it's just a matter of the amount of work and the content that you can put into that. And that's going to essentially, like we've said before, help your map pack, help you show up when everybody that's locally looking for something. You're going to be not featured maybe at the top, but you're going to be within that map, and people will find you much easier than if you don't have one. So I mean, make sure you hammer that one home.
If you just do random searches in your local market, what you will find is the map pack is typically showing up first. Google shows that before they show anything else. So before they show the organic results for websites, before they show the paid ads, oftentimes they will show the map pack. The map pack is 100% driven by your Google business page. It's not driven by what's on your website. It's driven by your Google business page. So if you aren't active and you don't have an optimized Google business page, you are literally missing prime real estate number one in the map pack by not being there. So, I mean, that's why I say it's as important as your website, because sometimes the results for your Google business page are showing up well above the organic results for websites below. So if it's getting to the point where I might even be willing to say a Google business page is more important than a website.
Yeah. I think we're right at the end. Do you have time for one more?
Yeah, sure. If it's a short one, let's do it.
We've got a short one. We've gone over, let's jump on Tim's
question.
I have also been hearing people having problems verifying your Google account when they are a mobile business. And that's something we've been working with a lot of different people. And going through that process, we've had people where their Google Ads account gets suspended with different things. And obviously there's the bullet point checklist and all the things you kind of have to fill out. And if you're saying that because you're a mobile business, maybe it's because it needs an address to kind of verify you, especially with the map pack. How does that work?
But when you set up your Google business page, you could set it up to say you don't do business at the address. But you still have to have an address to get verified. You have to have an address or they won't verify you. They may, in fact, with some of the double checks they're doing, ask you for a business license, things like that, a piece of mail that shows that you're there, that you're doing business. But you're going to have an address to be verified. That's just part of it. But you don't have to publish that address. So say if you're a business that does work on location somewhere, so you have a shop, but nobody ever comes to that shop, you would use that as your address to get verified, but you wouldn't publish that address because you don't want somebody coming to your address. And then you can specify the geographic areas that you service and the services that you provide, but you won't actually have an address. If you're a local business that actually has a shop that people come to, you obviously would want to have that address published so that people could actually even ask for directions on how to get there, all those different things that come along with an address. So to your point, Tim, if somebody's a mobile business, they still have to have an address in order to get verified. They can just select not to have that address published, but they shouldn't have any problem getting verified. They just have to verify with an address that they're a real person, but they could select to not have that address be visible to people searching.
Yeah, I want to say of all the ones that we've done, we've had a few that take 30 seconds to verify, and other ones that we've taken almost a week. So it's always dependent on Google as far as kind of their restrictions or whatever they're working with as far as what they're seeing as the information. So just make sure that you're thorough going through that whole process and giving the information correctly and making sure you're double checking it, because one, it could just be a couple clicks and you're good. But other times, especially if you are renewing it and you already have Google Ads going, that can kind of be stressful to kind of figure out and understand like what's going on. And there are some pitfalls as far as communication with them. There's no direct content. You can only contact through email. So just be patient if you're having some time that you're being stuck and aren't getting verified. Otherwise, I'd say 95% of the time, it's usually pretty quick.
Well, the other thing too to keep in mind is the more things you've got filled out accurately, that you've taken time to fill out your products and services, things like that, the more you're going to appear to Google like a legitimate business. I think sometimes when people are having a problem verifying, they filled out the name of their company and maybe a phone number and not a whole lot else. They haven't uploaded any pictures, they haven't uploaded a logo. And Google really is intent with how much emphasis they're putting on these listings. They're really intent on making sure these are legitimate businesses that are listed. So they're asking people to jump through a couple of hoops to make sure that they're verified and that it's a legitimate business. They're not doing that to make your life difficult. They're doing that to try to make sure that the people that they're putting your location in front of are actually dealing with a legitimate, credible business. So yeah, they might ask you for something like a business license and things like that. And they're not trying to do that to be difficult. They're trying to do that to make sure when they put you in front of people that they're putting legitimate businesses in front of people.
Yep. Well, I think we'll wrap up here at this point. We've gone over a little bit, but I'm glad we were able to answer a few of Tim's questions.
Yeah, thanks, Tim, for the great questions.
Yep. No, absolutely. I was going to mention, if you missed Patric's Ultimate Digital Marketing Hour, it's about to be uploaded on YouTube within about a few minutes if it's not already up there. And we'll also post, if you did go to it, I'm going to try to post the slides that people were asking about if they could get a hold of those. Just so if you had information, if you saw the presentation and wanted to kind of dig in on a few things that Patric had listed but didn't get a chance to get a good solid picture of it, or it turned out blurry, we're going to post those on the socials.
Absolutely. And when it goes live, why don't you go ahead and throw the link in the comments here? Since you mentioned it on this video, just drop the link in the comments. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Marketing Mondays number 78. We're going to try to be really consistent about doing these on Mondays. Can't commit to every single Monday, but we will always make sure we make them available after the fact. So if you missed, you can still watch them, but stay tuned in. We're going to just continue to try to answer people's questions. So if you have one, go ahead and put it in the comments, send it to us directly, whatever. We'd love to answer your question online. So with that, we'll see you later.
Take care, guys.